Hi, I'm Gloria J with Action Speaks, continuing the reading of research, studies, and history of giftedness. I could say gifted and talented. However, it's the subject of giftedness. That is to include everyone. Today we shall start with a new study by the same author. The study is Beyond Deficit Thinking, Providing Access for Gifted African American Students, Underrepresentation in Gifted Education. How did we get here and what needs to change? The author is Michelle Frazier Trotman. The article type is Statistical Data Included. Geographical Code 1 USA. Date January 1, 2002. Publication Roper Review. ISSN number 02783193. Begins. Concern for the underrepresentation of black students in gifted programs date back to Jenkins, 1936. Studies of black students with high intelligence test scores who were not formally identified as gifted. This lament has continued each decade since. For instance, in 1950, the Educational Policies Commission noted the tragic waste of black talent, lacking both incentive and opportunity. The probabilities are very great that, however superior one's gifts may be, he will rarely live a life of high achievement. Follow-up studies of highly gifted young Negroes, African Americans or Black Americans, for instance, reveal a shocking waste of talent, a waste that adds an incalculable amount to the price of prejudice in this country. Page 33 of the study. Even today, nearly a half century since Brown versus Board of Education, 1954, more school desegregation, the law of the land. Let me reread that. Even today, nearly a half century since Brown versus Board of Education, 1954, made school segregation the law of the land, gifted African American students continue to be under-identified. Gifted education too often remains racially segregated, with students of color being underrepresented and underserved. Harris and Ford's 1991 review of the literature revealed that fewer than 2% of the articles and scholarly publications focused on gifted minority learners. Ford, 1998, conducted another such search of articles in 5 gifted education journals between 1966 and 1996. And as Table 1 shows, she found that only 36 of 2,816 focused on black students. Ford also found that the vast majority of that research and literature focus heavily on the recruitment, that is, the identification and assessment of black students for placements in gifted programs. Almost no attention focused on their retention, on strategies for ensuring that minority students experience success once identified and placed. This article reviews the literature on the identification and placement, i.e. the recruitment of black students into programs for gifted learners. Our premise is that underrepresentation of black students in gifted education extends beyond identification instruments and assessment processes, and that a deficit perspective exists whereby students of color who are culturally different from the white counterparts are viewed as culturally deprived or disadvantaged. The deficit perspective regarding culturally diversity keeps educators from recognizing the gifts and talents of African American students. Finally, we maintain that educators must aggressively seek ways both to recruit and to retain African American students in gifted education. Recruitment and retention barriers. Recommendations regarding the identification and assessment of gifted black students vary, but they emphasize the need to find alternative ways, more reliable and valid ways to identify gifted black students. These options include culturally sensitive instruments, e.g., nonverbal tests, multidimensional assessment strategies, and broader philosophies, definitions, and theories of giftedness, which is provided in my book, of course, Every Child Born Gifted. Frazier, Garcia, and Paso, 1995. Frazier and Paso, 1994. Ford, 1996. Recognizing the loss of talent among diverse students not being identified as gifted. Congress, 1988, passed legislation, i.e. Javits Act, to promote the interests of gifted students. Its major goal is to support efforts to identify and serve minority and low socioeconomic status students, which simply SES students. The legislation requires that about half of the funded projects serve low SES students. Moreover, in 1997, the National Association for Gifted Children published a position statement urging educators to use more than one test to make educational and placement decisions about gifted students, and to seek equity in their identification and assessment instruments, policies, and procedures. Despite these initiatives, little has changed in the demographics of gifted education or the practice and instruments used to identify gifted students, as discussed later. The more recent research or report on the underrepresentation of black students in gifted education from the U.S. Department of Education, USDE, 1993, showed that gifted black students were underrepresented by at least 50% nationally. As Table 2 indicates, little has changed in terms of percentages over the years. Black students and other minorities, with the exception of Asian Americans, remain notably absent from gifted programs. In fact, for minority groups, the underrepresentation has actually increased forward 1998. Why does the underrepresentation of gifted African Americans persist? While a majority of commentators raise testing issues, we believe that the principal barrier to the recruitment and retention of African American students in gifted education is the pervasive deficit orientation that prevails in society and its educational institutions. After examining this orientation, we discuss symptoms of the orientation, such as the low referral rates of black students for gifted education services and the heavy reliance on tests that inadequately capture the strengths and cultural orientation of black students. The next session, we will continue reading on the research studies and history of giftedness. The next topic will be deficit ideologies, limiting access and opportunities. Again, these studies are written. This study in particular is authored by Michelle Fraser Trotman. Publication Roper Review. Thank you so much, and we will continue next session. I'm Gloria Keith with Action Speaks, reading to you research study and history for authentic production of Every Child Born Gifted by Gloria J. Thank you. God bless you. Have a great day.